Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of IBD Heal, a podcast brought to you by High Carb Health. My name is Shakul, and I'm joined here by the incredible Dr. Scott Stoll. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Shakul. It's really an honor to be here. So glad to be back. It's been a couple of years. I think this was, what year were we in Australia? Was it 2018 or
Ni-
17?
ni- 19, I think. No, 18.
18.
18, the start of 18, I think. Yeah, the start of 18 when the Doctors for Nutrition conference was on.
Right.
And yeah, that's when we first met. And we've met another time at the conference that you support. Um, it was in Oakland, I believe. And
That's exactly right.
so Dr. Scott Stoll is one of the real good guys of medicine. He's been championing lots of different changes in the way doctors look at health and the way they practice, and looking at lifestyle medicine as a real foundation of looking after people's health. And he's also the co-founder of the Plantrician Project, the International Plant-Based Nutrition Healthcare Conference that we've been lucky enough to attend, the International Journal of Disease Reversal and Prevention, and the Regenerative Health Institute, which is a unique collaborative project with the Rodale Institute that integrates health with agricultural and environmental regeneration. So it's a real pleasure to have Dr. Stoll, who's been on the front lines for many, many years, championing change and making a huge difference to the world. So yeah, thankful again to have you on the show.
Yeah, thank you so much, Shakul. So honored to be here with you and your audience.
So what we want to talk about today is really discussing some of the work that Dr. Stoll has been doing. And the first topic that I've chosen to discuss with you, Dr. Stoll, is around the education piece, around changing the way we look at health and the way doctors look at health. And really, how have you found that? Like, can you talk a little bit about the history of how it's been moving along over the years?
Yeah, it's very interesting when we look at the history of medical education to see that, going all the way back, there was a shift kind of philosophically that started in the Industrial Revolution and then this modern period of medicine where we started breaking things down into like parts that we could understand, which is great, compartmentalization and reductionism, where we began
Mm,
to understand the receptors of disease and then develop drugs to impact those receptors. And that became kind of the modern paradigm of medicine still today in the 21st century. The mistake that we made in doing that is that we stayed in the microscopic level or the
mm,
biochemical level, and we forgot to step back and say, well, how do all these pieces fit together? How does
mm,
this system actually work? We forgot to go back and look at the biologic system, the physiologic system of a human body, and the incredible interactions and interrelationships of all of these systems, and then realize that we can't do just one thing in medicine. We can't just tinker with one receptor because there are receptors all throughout the body. So that
mm,
led to a preponderance of education around pharmacology and the pathophysiology of disease. And it hindered our understanding of disease in the way that, we really never asked where are these diseases coming from.
mm,
We just identified them, we developed differential diagnoses, and then we tried to figure out ways to manage them or treat them, but not
mm,
solve the problem. And
mm,
so today, medical education is funded largely by, money from industry,
mm,
pharmacology, and others. Um, and so the education really is focused in that direction. And most medical school students receive very little nutritional education or lifestyle education. In fact, they come out with no knowledge of nutrition and its impact on the human body and the opportunity to prevent, suspend, and reverse disease. I saw an interesting
mm,
study just recently. They were following medical school students entering and matriculating into medical school, and they asked them just before their first year, how many of you believe that nutrition is important in human health and disease? And of course,
mm,
as they're coming into medical school, about 80% of the students said, yeah, nutrition's important. By year two,
mm,
the number was zero. So they came into medical school with a concept that it was important, By the end of their second year, we had actually trained it out of them. So even though they
Wow.
received, on average, medical school students about 19 hours of medical education during their 4 years of medical school,
Hmm.
um, they really are undergoing like an unlearning process around the
Right.
power of nutrition and
Hmm.
lifestyle to prevent, suspend, and reverse disease.
Yeah, so that's 19 hours of nutrition education over 4 years of medical. Is that right?
That's about right. And it's,
Yeah.
the education that we receive in medical school is really ICU nutrition, hospital-based nutrition. It's
Hmm.
not the nutrition that you and I actually understand, where
Hmm.
nutrition nourishing the body, optimizing biologic, physiologic systems, and preventing, suspending, reversing disease. We don't get any of that in medical school.
Right. And so, in terms of the work you've been doing, how has that been changing the thought process? Because, I mean, that's incredible. Like, if you go from 80% of people having a concept that, yeah, okay, nutrition may play a role in my health, to 2 years later, 0% of those people still have that view. That to me is fascinating. So what do we need to do to kind of shift that?
Yeah, it's those are the data points that really wake you up. We know that we
Hmm.
have an issue. We know that doctors are coming out and they just don't understand. Sometimes people get frustrated with our colleagues in this area, and I
Hmm.
just say that it goes back to like this quote from Maya Angelou: "I did then what I knew how to do, but now that I know better, I do better." Most doctors are just doing what they were taught to do, and they don't know any better.
Hmm.
And so. But the really good news, even though this sounds like really dire news and hopelessness, there is a real awakening in healthcare.
Hmm.
There are several medical schools where they are beginning to use a curriculum that includes lifestyle medicine. Um, Medical school students now, this next generation, are aware and awake and interested in searching out the information.
Hmm.
And they're finding that information. Thanks to social media, even though it has its dark side, there's a real light side.
Hmm.
And thanks to the internet, this information is available and is becoming more available for our colleagues. And I really see, a lot of leadership in the medical school students and residents that are stepping forward. For example, some positive data points through the ACLM, and we're working with them on a project called Plantrician U, which we can talk about in a minute. There
Hmm.
are more than 140 residency programs that are now utilizing lifestyle medicine curriculum, and more than 80 medical school student interest groups that are utilizing this kind of information. That's just here in the United States. This is also happening internationally, a little bit slower, but it's also beginning to happen internationally. Hospitals are also beginning to look at other options. The hospitals have long been using volume-based care and disease-based management models. Some are actually
Hmm.
beginning to switch. I've worked with some of them, and I have another healthcare system that I'm starting to work with in October. And so, there in the last 5 years, we can really see the kind of revolution that's on the horizon, where medical school students, residents, and doctors are awakening to this idea that food really can be more than medicine. It can optimize, revitalize, and give people their lives back. And so, it's exciting to be at this place, because when we started, a number of years
Hmm.
ago, 2013, it was much more difficult. But we're seeing the first sprouts of life coming up from the soil.
Hmm. And it seems like, it's heading back towards the first principles of do no harm. As Hippocrates said, let food be thy medicine. And it seems like over the last many decades, we've been moving away from that. Now, slowly we're realizing, oops, made a wrong turn. And let's start to shift back back to those
That's right.
first principles, right? So let's talk about the Plantation Project, because this is so exciting for me, and having obviously spoken to you about it and been present at one of the events, which was exceptional. Um, what is the Plantation Project, and what is it trying to achieve?
So the Plantrician Project is a not-for-profit organization that was started by myself, my partner Tom Dunham, and Susan Benegas
Hmm.
back in 2013 after our first conference, which we started that was our International Plant-Based Nutrition Healthcare Conference to educate healthcare professionals. And it really arose out of part of my journey going back into like 2003, realizing how difficult it was for me to learn, how many hours I had to spend like culling
Hmm.
through information, trying to pull out truth, and
Hmm.
then learning how to apply that in my practice in the day to day that, my patients would actually take it, own it, and begin making those changes and coming alongside of them, in a lifestyle change, which I was totally unprepared for in my medical education. So we started this organization to equip, empower, inspire, and educate healthcare professionals around the world with the indisputable facts, evidence, science of whole food plant-based nutrition to prevent, suspend, and reverse, lifestyle related diseases. So we have grown since 2013. We started with one conference, 180 people from 12 countries, non-COVID years. Our conference is usually about 1,200 to 1,500 healthcare professionals from 40 countries. We have, a companion conference on the East Coast in New York. We worked with the leadership, Doctors for Nutrition, to start the conference and not-for-profit there in Australia. We have a conference that I partner with Prince Khalid in Saudi Arabia, Bangkok, Thailand. We've done virtual conferences, and we'll be launching one in-person conference 2023. And we started the International Journal of Disease Reversal and Prevention, which now has 20,000 subscribers, to really be a repository of evidence around plant-based nutrition to reverse disease and to
Hmm.
encourage people to publish and get access. So it's a free journal with no publishing fees. We wanted to remove all barriers to access that information.
That's amazing. And, one of the beautiful things about the Plantation Project is you have a whole library of plant-based health professionals on your website. So if you're wanting to find someone and you don't know where to look, go to the Plantation Project website, and the details will be in the link below, and find a doctor who can help support you in your journey to changing your diet, finding ways to improve your health. Hopefully as your health improves, getting off some of those medications that you're taking. Um, you're telling me about a project that you were just working on, talking about medications in the Middle East, where you were doing a TV show and you had all these participants come on. Talk about some of the changes that people, and you think you mentioned in about 8 days, like people were seeing significant changes. Can you talk about some of that?
Yeah, absolutely. You know what's amazing? We've been doing health immersions for more than 10 years where we
Mm,
bring people in and over the course of a week, we teach them about food, we feed them a whole food plant-based diet, a little bit of exercise, how to manage stress. And every single week that we do this, I am amazed at how quickly the body rebounds to health. And
mm,
so in March, we had a unique opportunity to film a television show, which will be 6 episodes, built around this immersion concept, where we brought in 12 people from all over the world with a host of diseases, including menopausal symptoms, hypertension, blood pressure is 190 over 100, type
mm,
2 diabetes that's poorly controlled, irritable bowel, chronic fatigue
mm,
syndrome. I mean, an amazing list of diseases, impotence,
mm,
erectile dysfunction. And we brought them in and hyper nourished their body. And when they first arrived and we did our work at the Cleveland Clinic for evaluations, they came in and we started getting their numbers back, and we're all looking at the
mm,
numbers thinking, oh my goodness, they are more unhealthy than they actually told us. Is
mm,
this really going to work now that we're having, these people on television? And
mm,
so, it never ceases to amaze me that when you do the right thing and you give your body
mm,
the right opportunity to heal, as you know so well, that it does. And so, in just 8 days, every single person, all 12 of them, had recovered to the extent that we were forced to deprescribe or take their medications away.
Mm.
It was not, we had another physician that was managing them, and because their blood pressures were dropping, we had to discontinue medications. Their blood sugars were dropping, we had to discontinue medications.
Mm.
And so by the end of the show, people with bone on bone knee pain had no more pain were walking. People with, we had a woman with an autoimmune disease, polymyalgia rheumatica, that had severe pain by the end of, the 2.5 weeks, she had no pain.
Mm.
So, I mean, everything got better. And all we did was provide the environment for that
Mm-hmm.
improvement, and so that will be out this fall. We're really excited about it.
Mm.
So we'll have a big announcement once we know which platform it will land on. But it will be
Yeah.
hopefully a great source of encouragement and inspiration for people.
And we'll be sure to share that for sure. And I think one thing you mentioned there was really interesting that, when you, and we say this too, people always ask us, oh, can I really get better? Is there is there a possibility for me to get better? And I say, when you make positive changes to your diet and lifestyle, positive things will happen. you know Now, and it's never too late to start. It's just simple kind of biology and physiology of the body. When you start treating it correctly, it starts to work in the way that it was designed to work for. Yeah, we had a little um introduction to one of your pets, I think. But yeah, it's really fascinating. And yeah, and even though these things happen and you've seen it so many times, every time you see someone kind of recover, it just seems again like it's just a wonderful experience.
Yeah, it's really a great privilege. And as a healthcare provider, this is why all of us went into medicine. Most of us
Mm,
in our medical school interviews said, I love people and I really want to help people. And so,
absolutely.
this is the great joy of helping people, that they come in with a smile on their face and they give you a hug and say, "Thank you. I've never felt this good in my life." And you know
Mm,
this too. After, seeing people's lives completely turn around and you've given them freedom, you
mm,
know, it's the greatest job on planet Earth to be able to help people.
absolutely. Yep. And it's all about the people and helping them turn their lives around. And that honestly, you're right. It just gives you the most incredible joy when they turn the corner or they start to see the change and they start to believe in themselves. It's just a wonderful thing to see happen. Okay, so just talking about that, in terms of you were talking about, you were forced to deprescribe some of these medications, like you didn't have a choice. The numbers were getting so much better. From your experience around doctors, why are doctors so hesitant at times to do that? Because I've had so many people that, even though the numbers have got better, the doctor still tells them, you should stay on this for the rest of your life or something along those lines.
Yeah, so much of it goes back to their education, that they have never seen the other side, and so they're
Hmm.
skeptical. They've
Mm-hmm.
never read the evidence. They've never seen someone actually get better.
Hmm.
They've actually seen the other side of it, where people go on diets and they may
Hmm.
get better for a few weeks. They come back in 6 months later and blood pressure's back up. And so they're hesitant because they've never actually seen somebody get well. They don't
Hmm.
know that it's possible. They've
Mm-hmm.
only seen the failures.
Mm-hmm.
They've only seen failures on the other side. And so
Mm.
they're being cautious. They're trying to do what's right for the patient. They don't want their patients to end up in a bad position. And they don't, it's like Maya Angelou, they just don't know any better.
Mm.
And that's why, I think, like, the television show, the testimonials from people. I wrote a book recently, Disease Reversal Hope, that has 36 stories of people that reversed, like radically reversed disease.
Mm.
And that we started the journal so that they can see the case reports, they can read the journal articles, they can attend a conference, they can see that there's evidence supporting this, and
Mm.
feel, more comfortable walking through that process of helping their patients actually get well and deprescribing their medications.
Yeah, that's amazing. In terms of the movement, like what are some of the things that you've been seeing from doctors? What kind of stories are you getting from people that you've helped, re kind of examine their views on healthcare? What kind of things do you see like from the healthcare professionals after the work that you've been doing with the conference and the journal and things like that?
Yeah, one story just comes to mind. I was asked to do, back in 2014, I did a CME event at Midland Health Hospital in Midland, Texas, and this is oil
Hmm.
country and
Mm-hmm.
cattle country. It is not a healthy place like Austin, Texas. Um, and so I did an event at the hospital. I spoke at a church. I went back in 2015, and they started to get a little group of physicians that were excited about this. They started a journal club.
Mm.
They sent a chef to the conference in 2016. And then, while I was there, I met a physician. She actually came to our first CME event, and she came to the event at the church, Dr. Padmaja Patel.
Mm-hmm.
And she came to our conferences, we worked with her, and she went on to start a lifestyle medicine center at Midland Health and is now kind of the leading voice and physician in that community and healthcare organization for lifestyle medicine, doing amazing things and helping people reverse disease. And we've seen so many people that have come to our conference, gone home, written books, come to our conference, started new programs in their communities, and
Mm.
so it's been fun because we always our tagline is we're planting the seeds of change. So we feel
Mm.
like every opportunity that we have to plant seeds in people's lives of inspiration through what's possible that they maybe didn't think was possible, through evidence and science to give them confidence that they can do this, continuing education to answer their questions, tools to equip them. And, our organization, American College of Lifestyle Medicine, come alongside of them. And, we're seeing now what used to be a small number of physicians in the tens of thousands all over the world really applying this and bringing about
Mm.
change in the patients' lives on a daily basis.
Mm. And it's such a new movement. I think it's just probably going to be a snowball effect as it gets bigger and bigger and bigger over time. Um, the other interesting thing that I learned when I came to the conference in 2019, I believe, or was it 2018? End of 2018. Yeah. Was the whole work you do around hospitals. Like, how do you, how do hospitals contact you? Do you go and talk to them about, looking at changing? Because I've seen, you've had hospitals go and start growing gardens on their roofs and things like that to start implementing more healthy plants into their patients' lives. How does that work?
Yes, I've always tried to just flow to places where people are interested.
Hmm.
And, when we started our organization, one of the kind of core values is that we didn't want to always preach to the choir. I especially wanted to go to places where they've never heard the message.
Hmm.
Sometimes you're stepping into the lion's den, you do a presentation for all these healthcare providers and they have a lot of questions. It seems like so radical and outside the bounds of traditional medicine to actually say that you can reverse disease. But that's what I love to do because you start things that can really grow and you can see exponential change that way. What's
Hmm.
so interesting about healthcare providers, one healthcare provider sees on average at the low end 10,000 people and at the high end 20 to 30,000 people in their career.
Wow.
So if we can touch one healthcare provider,
Hmm.
it has an exponential impact. If we can do 10,000 or 100,000 healthcare providers, you're in the billions of people contacted
Wow.
over the course of a career. So,
Hmm.
I'm really excited to be able to go into these healthcare systems. So I had this wonderful opportunity in the month of October to go to a new healthcare system in Missouri, St. Francis, and I was invited by someone that is a wonderful champion of plant-based nutrition who is an executive there and has one or two physician champions. And so I'll be going into that healthcare system, doing a large CME event and a community event to really just show them the evidence and help
Hmm.
them like expand their minds and be excited about the opportunity to incorporate lifestyle and plant-based nutrition as a foundation for addressing this non-communicable disease burden that really is just gutting hospitals financially.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so I'm excited because I know that we're going to find a group of physicians that will get excited, just like Midland, Texas. They'll start, groups meeting on a regular basis. I always encourage them to start a dinner group outside of the hospital,
Mm.
a potluck to bring people together and start conversations because that's
Mm.
where things can really expand rapidly. So we'll have an update on that in maybe a year and we can see where this project has gone.
Yeah, that's amazing. Now, the other thing that I really wanted to discuss with you is food. I know you're very, very passionate about food, farming methods, regeneration of the soil, and how we're protecting our food supply and our soil for future generations. So, that was one of the things that I found really fascinating at the conference that we came to. So, can we start talking about that? And the other question we get asked a lot is, should I be eating organic food? And I know you're really passionate about that as well and that topic. So first of all, let's talk about the farming methods and then we can go into organic and non-organic food.
Sure, absolutely. As I was working through this, and I've always learned to just keep asking questions. I've learned it from my children. Yeah, why is the sky blue? So you give them an answer. Well, why is that? Why is that? They just keep
Mm,
asking why. It's the curious question that really leads us to truth.
mm,
So as I was beginning to understand the power of the food on our plate to transform our bodies and to optimize our physiology, you start asking, well, what's in the food that makes a difference? Is
mm-hmm,
it the macronutrients? And you discover it's really the micronutrients that make a difference. It's
mm,
the minerals, it's the fiber content, especially the phytochemicals and the antioxidants that are in the food that really make a difference. And you begin to see research looking at total antioxidant capacity of food and the risk of disease. And the higher the antioxidant content, the lower the risk of disease.
mm,
And we see evidence today that on the plant-based dietary index, and we see that an unhealthy plant-based diet has the equivalent risk of heart disease, cancer, type 2 diabetes that the omnivore, the westernized diet does.
mm,
A plant-based diet is better. A healthy plant-based diet is where you really see the decline in improvement.
mm,
We see other research where they took a group of individuals and they gave them high nutrient density plants, dark colored leafy green vegetables, fruits, etc., and light colored fruits and vegetables. And they measured the high sensitivity CRP, the inflammatory levels, over
mm,
2 weeks. And the group that was on the light colored fruits and vegetables had a slow increase in inflammation over time. The group on the dark colored fruits and vegetables had a decrease in inflammation over that 2 week period of time. So you
mm,
start to look at some of this research and understanding that it's these micronutrients in our food that really make a difference. And then you ask, well, which foods are better? Which ones should I be eating? And then your question, is organic really necessary?
mm,
And then you ask, well, where do those nutrients come from? Which leads you back to the way that the food is grown, and that becomes
mm.
Pandora's box when you open that one because and we'll talk briefly about that, but the way that
Yeah.
we grow really matters, not only in the nutritional content of our food, which is important, but in the future for the soil and the land that we're stewarding for the next generation. That's where it's really important.
Mm,
So first, let's just answer that question that you asked, and then we'll get into the farming. Do I need to eat organic? And the answer is simple. The most important thing you can do is eat whole plants, as many as you can, as many servings as you can. Most of the research shows that you should be eating at least 10 servings every single day. And when people are sick, one serving of animal products, one serving of ultra processed food can make a difference in the disease process.
mm,
So, yes, you should just eat plants. If you can't afford organic, eat conventional plants and you will get better. So, that's the most important thing. I never
mm,
want people to um, feel constrained, to feel guilty, shamed, or anything by the choice of the fruits and vegetables they make.
mm,
Just eat plants. That's the most important thing.
mm,
When you can choose organic. And the reason to choose organic, so often organic is we understand it in the marketing of organic food around toxins, pesticides, herbicides, and certainly minimizing our exposure to those things is better. And the research shows that people on conventional diets have high levels of these toxins in their urine, and when they stop eating, the toxins go away. So um, we have toxins everywhere in our environment today, so we're never going to escape toxins. When they look at human fat, we have upwards of 600 different chemicals in our fat today because toxins are everywhere. They're in our lawn, they're in our food, they're in the air.
Mm,
There's microplastics. I mean, it's we're not
mm,
going to escape. So certainly, limiting exposure is important. The reason that I choose organic is a couple fold. Number one, if I can expose myself to more antioxidants, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, it will make a difference. And the
mm,
research shows that, so actually some new research coming out of Rodale, that food grown in organic soil can have between 100 and 700 times more antioxidants than conventionally grown produce.
mm,
Other research has shown, at least 60% improvement in the amount of these antioxidants and phytochemicals, which are really vital for improving our health.
mm,
So that's one reason. The second reason that I choose organic, especially regenerative organic, and which is a little bit different, is I like to support when I can local organic farmers and farm families. And so we shop, here in Tennessee. We have a beautiful farmers market in Franklin, Tennessee, where we go every Saturday. We have another little farm that we stop at on the way, and we buy food from the people that we talk to, and they tell us about the
mm,
soil. And we see their children, and we love to support that kind of local agriculture. Um, but also, even beyond that, there's a principle that I really believe we've lost in our culture, which is the idea of stewardship.
mm,
That we are managing something, we don't own it, we're managing something for future generations. And that is especially the earth and the land and the soil where food is grown. I'm not going to be here in 60, 70 years, even though I'm eating a really healthy diet. And so I'm leaving behind, based on my choices and what I can do while I'm here, land that will be used by my children and grandchildren to grow their food.
mm,
And so when we look at some of the statistics that show we're losing topsoil at an unsustainable rate, topsoil is you can rebuild topsoil, but it takes a long time to rebuild,
mm,
and we're losing topsoil faster than we can rebuild it. And so,
mm,
there are some United Nations that said we only have, 40 years of topsoil left at the current rate of loss. So if we
mm,
don't change the way that we're producing the billions of pounds of food, we all eat 2,000 pounds of food every day. If we don't change the way that we are stewarding the earth and growing our food, we're not going to have soil left for our children and grandchildren.
mm,
The way that we grow food affects the waterways. Right now in the United States here, with the water, all the pesticides and herbicides wash into the Gulf of Mexico, and there's an area in the Gulf of Mexico the size of New Jersey, huge, like one of our states, where there's no life because the pesticides and
mm,
herbicides kill the ocean. Um, all fish today are full of toxins, whether they're wild caught or farm raised, because our oceans are filled with toxins from the way that we grow our food. The
mm,
way that we grow our food and the types of food that we grow and the use of our land contributes to carbon emissions. It contributes to deforestation. It contributes to the
mm,
loss of biodiversity. And so, the way that we grow food that ends up on our plate every day really does matter. And we all can make choices when we have the opportunity to choose food that's grown in a regenerative way on organic farms where people are thinking about this and making different choices to invest in land and in processes that help to regenerate soil and life. And so I just see it as a privileged opportunity to invest in the future generations when I'm choosing to buy from local farmers when I'm choosing, regenerative organic food. And Rodale Institute recently came up with a label called Regenerative Organic that helps us differentiate between large organic farms that, are doing some of the right things and farms that are really investing in the future through regenerative principles.
Mm,
So there, that's another way for us to differentiate that. So yes, I can do what's good for me by getting more nutrients, but I want to think beyond myself, not just consumerism or selfishness.
hmm
And I'm choosing to invest my money in food that not only nourishes me, but is going to nourish the land that I'm giving to my future generations.
mm. And is that sustainable? I mean, I know you had a presentation at the conference from Rodale Institute about how they're coming up with new and I guess novel ways of farming that don't need the pesticides and those kind of things, but they're also more not profit, maybe profitable, but also they can produce more yield. And so because many people think, okay, well, we need the pesticides to sustain the population. How sustainable is it to do this regenerative farming?
Yeah, no, that is the great question. And that's always the point of friction and
Mm,
I think antagonism around regenerative organic farming is people say, well, we have to grow food for, 10 million people. Can we
mm,
actually do that? And, there certainly is a transition period that we need to work through. When they look at yields from organic farms, and it's been done by multiple universities, the yield from an organic and a conventional farm are about the same. Once the soil is healthy, they will produce the same. But the
mm,
difference really comes in drought years. In drought years, it can be 40% more in from an organic farm because the soil holds water and sustains the
right.
plant. Unhealthy soil has no biomass. There's no life in the soil. And
Mm,
so when you encounter a drought year, the plants dry up and die.
mm,
The other the other important realization is that once you have a healthy soil, your plants are healthy and they are very resistant to
mm,
infections, to insects. They develop very a great resistance, just like our bodies. When we do the right thing and we get healthy, you rarely get sick
hmm
because your body, your immune system is strong. And the same thing for the plant. That soil is critical to the health of the plant. And so, yes, the yields can be equal, especially in drought years. They can be superior,
mm,
and eventually, the soil becomes so healthy that the plants don't require any additional care. They just grow vibrantly alive.
wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah, and going back to that organic versus non-organic and whether people can get better, like when Shamiz was going through his healing journey with ulcerative colitis, we didn't even know about organic or not. We were just so new to this. He just ate plants, and then we didn't eat any organic food until after he healed and we started to do more research into it. So, yeah, absolutely, you can, you're gonna get better if you eat the right types of food. It doesn't have to be organic. Yes, organic would be better, and if you can afford it and it's available to you, then definitely. But yeah, I think that's really fascinating. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, just eat plants, right? That's the most important thing you can take away from today. Just eat more plants. As many dark colored plants as you can possibly get on your plate, in your mouth,
Mhm.
on your fingers every single day.
Now, just to finish off the meeting, Dr. Stoll, I'd like you to just share a couple of tips for people who may be thinking of starting on a plant-based diet or are wondering whether this is the right thing for them to do. What are some of the key things that you tell your patients, when they come in, oh, Dr. Stoll, I've got all these issues and I don't know what to do. Uh, yeah, just share some of those things that you would maybe discuss for a new starter.
Yeah, the most important thing, it starts in our mind with a mindset. It
Hmm.
starts with hope and belief that this is possible. It starts with a mindset that is open to change and education. And
Hmm.
so I love what you all are doing because people can hear inspirational stories, and that inspires hope inside of them. They can, come alongside a community of people and find support, and that's critical for,
Hmm.
helping you overcome some of the challenges in old mindsets, belief systems, past failures with diets, challenges and friction points that are inevitable, food addiction. You have to develop a strong mindset, and the strong mindset is solidified through a strong community. And
Mm,
that's why what you're doing is so powerful, because you've created a community to inspire, to help with accountability, to hold hands, to encourage, to equip people. So it's the mindset and the community that are essential for change. People do it without those.
mm,
Eventually, they need those things to sustain the lifestyle. So you really need to develop a mindset first of hope that it's possible, belief that you can do it, and find a group of like-minded people in a community. Once you
mm,
have those things, today it's so much easier, because at your fingertips on the internet are so many resources. In your
mm,
community, there are so many resources, recipes, menu plans,
mm,
cookbooks, encouragement, tips and tricks, everything that you need to get healthy.
mm,
Um, and so I always encourage people, just spend time working on your mindset. And eventually you work towards, reshaping your identity. What's very
mm,
interesting about people, they did a large study looking at personalities. They measured people's personalities from age 14 to 74, so 70 years.
mm,
And they found that everybody's personality is radically different over the course of a lifetime. So it just tells us that everything changes,
mm,
and and I like to use that for people to encourage them. I have lots of patients and people that say, well, I can't do this because I am something in their personality or their identity. And I
mm,
always encourage them, like, listen, that's who you were, but your personality is different today than it was then, and it will be different, 5 years from now. So let's just
mm.
get over that, and
Yeah.
let's say it's possible. And I always tell my patients, I want you to start telling yourself that I am a very healthy person. And
Mm,
eventually that starts rewiring your identity of who you are. And when you start to actually believe that I'm a very healthy person, then those tricky choices that you would have to make in social settings, or the difficult choices that you have to say no to when you're out in the community and there's unhealthy food choices, become effortless, because you
mm,
believe differently about yourself.
mm,
That takes some time, but that reprogramming process can start early
mm,
by just saying, I'm a very healthy person. And the last thing I would add is the power of the curious question
mhm,
inserted at just the right time. All of
mm,
us get into these behavior cycles where we have some kind of a trigger, and then
mm,
there's a behavior. And it's
mm,
all kinds of things that we slip into. And the way to break that is when you start to recognize there's a trigger and then there's this behavior, right in the middle, we just insert a curious question, that's just a question like, well, why am I thinking about doing this right now? What is
mm,
this going to do for me? Just a very simple question, takes less than 3 seconds to ask yourself, but it buys you enough time to kind of pull back and maybe make a different choice, or
mm,
draw on some resources that you might have read recently, or
mm,
recall some inspiration and encouragement from a friend or from you, or in your community, Shakul. Just that curious question buys time. And over time, by inserting that curious question, you disrupt those behavior cycles and
mm,
you gain freedom to make different choices. It's the
mm,
beginning of kind of mindfulness around eating. So that
mm.
would be my encouragement for people today.
That's very powerful. That's very powerful. And you're absolutely right. Like the amount of people that have gone through the program have healed their disease and have just decided that they're gonna go on a completely different path. Like they're a different person. They're not interested in doing the things that they used to do. They want to create change. They want to impact people. It's been amazing for us to see that, where we just kind of give them the tools to make positive changes in their lives, and their mood changes, their outlook on life changes, and it's fascinating. And you're absolutely right that you could, you are never going to be the same person from the day you know you start to realize a little bit about who you are to the last days of your life. It's never going to be the same thing. There's so many different things that shape our lives. But yeah, wonderful information there. Thank you so much. I think we're almost out of time, so I think we'll end it there. But I'd like to really thank you so much for sharing, and For everyone who's listening, watching, check out the work that Dr. Stoll is doing at the Plantation Project and his other projects as well. All the details will be in the description down there below. Um, yeah, so thank you so much, Dr. Stoll, and really lovely to see you again.
Yeah, lovely to see you too. And thanks so much for the invitation. It's been great. And I really appreciate Shakul and wish you all the best.
Thank you so much. Now, for everyone who's watching this on YouTube or listening to this on the podcast, please make sure you try and share this with as many people as possible so we can get this message out to the world and get people thinking differently about their health and how, sharing this message with their doctors too. If you're seeing a doctor, they're not supportive or they don't know enough about the information. And as Dr. Stoll said, they're doing their best with the information they know. So let's get them more information so that when they know more, they can do better. Teach them about, share with them the resources about the Plantrician Project. Get them to go to one of these conferences because they're life changing and the information is so valuable. For those of you watching on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel, hit that little bell notification icon so you get updates on all our recent uploads. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like, and there's a comment section down there. So if you have any questions, please ask away. And until next time, make sure you eat plants and lots of them. Take care.